Are you overwhelmed trying to keep your old facilities up to date for new programs and technology? Are you disappointed in the support that you're getting from on your projects? Or have you ever just said, if I only knew?
At SSP, we have a long history of working with New Jersey school districts, and we understand these challenges that you face. Let's hear from a few of your colleagues on some of the key issues.
First question, what makes a successful project?
Say from a facility standpoint is communication and transparency. Having a back and forth dialogue with the contractors is very important. It's impossible to be looking over their shoulder the entire time of the project. So being able for them to contact me when I'm not on site and ask me a question rather than just doing something, it goes a long way. It could prevent anything from being done wrong or being done a different way that doesn't work for our building. So, and it's the same thing, giving them my availability 24/7 really, it helps. It's just that transparency, back and forth communication goes a long way with contractors. So that's something I really, prefer.
Proper planning, 100%. And it starts with all stakeholders. It starts with principals, long-range facility plans, BAs, superintendents. You got to bring everybody into the room and find out where the district's going, what the district needs, and what your goals are.
Communication, coordination, and I guess available resources, right? The availability of the materials that we need, and the availability of the money we need, and but resources, communication, and coordination are, to me, the top three things.
So I think it's communication. You have to let everyone know, from the custodians to the superintendent, the teachers, people that are using the facilities, what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, what they can expect during the day, when it's going to end. And equally as important is to stick to that schedule as best you can. If there's changes, you have to let the people know. Any construction project is a big change for everybody. And when there's changes within the changes and you're not letting people know, that's when they start to get upset. So if you can tell them, even if things change, as long as you communicate that, I think everybody kind of stays on the same page and they feel a little bit better about the project.
Communication. Everybody communicating the same level.
Between administration and contractors and your consultants?
I would say everybody together.
For a successful project, I believe you need to have a good team. You need to have a good design professional, and then even internally, a good buildings and grounds team, and it goes all the way down into your frontline workers. So you really need a good team to make a project successful.
Well, I think depending on the size of the project, buy-in, understanding, these are things that we really want to make sure that we have up front from everybody who's going to use the space or who's going to be impacted by the project. Mm-hmm. So we make sure that we're talking to the teachers and staff who are going to use a room, for example, and that we engage them in as much of the design as we can. Certainly there are things that they're not going to be able to decide, the technical sides of a facilities project where you have this requirement or that requirement, but they're going to be using it day in and day out. So we need to get their feedback up front. So that's one of the important things to me as a superintendent. And I'm pleased here to have such a great staff that I can leave a lot of the technical considerations to other folks.
Yeah, so I think keeping the community informed about the progress and the timelines, I'm learning that's really important too, because we made these big promises with the referendum and we built that support. And some of these projects take a while, as you know, to get off the ground. And so when people don't see improvements, they think like, what happened? So really trying to communicate, to try to keep the consistent communication that we built before the referendum in this post-referendum phase 2. But then we also have to do like more internal work too, to make sure our district goals and our priorities reflect the goals and the priorities that we promised as part of the referendum, to see how those two things sort of coalesce. And that's really important, I think, for the educational side of things.
So, communication?
I heard that a few times.
Couple times. So, some common trends here: communication, coordination, and Manage expectations.
Managing expectations for sure. It's definitely a matter of if there's a change that needs to happen, just making sure everybody knows what's happening along the way. Definitely.
What's next?
I'd say we are definitely seeing the need to make facility changes along the way, and there are a number of things that are driving that. Anything from programs to operations to community expectations. Yes. So let's hear what's driving those changes.
Well, folks have always, it's been my experience, folks have always had an interest in facilities. Ultimately the community owns them, and they utilize them. And our facilities here get utilized quite a bit. But, recent events in the last decade or so have really changed the perception of the expectation, I guess, on our facilities, and safety and security being a top priority now. In our circumstance, we had to retrofit all our buildings with secure vestibules, which were a challenge in some cases. Some buildings were not designed that way. Technology is a challenge. Buildings of yesteryear weren't designed for wireless kind of communication, but that's really how we communicate. So, the challenges of retrofitting technology in a building that wasn't necessarily designed for wireless kind of communication devices is challenging. But the community expects that, right? So we have to find ways to go around what might be an obstacle as far as, with regard to technology, or getting our secure vestibules in place, upgrading our alarm systems, having the ability to communicate with local police, at the drop of a dime. So definitely expectations have changed. I think, when I first started many, many years ago, it was about cleanliness, it was about upkeep, and it was about making sure the classrooms, and it still is, were ready for the students the very next morning. That expectation is still there, but then, we've added layers of other things because of events that have occurred in recent years.
The biggest trouble I've been finding with these old buildings is HVAC. It's my number one headache in all my schools. They just weren't designed for the comfort level of kids nowadays, especially air conditioning. The months are hotter, the warmer seasons last longer, and when that room is 80 something degrees, it's very difficult for a kid to learn, and it's difficult for staff to teach in. So finding ways to put air conditioning in classrooms, budgeting wise, even if the rooms can handle it, the electricity, it's a big challenge overall.
So not being an educator and watching what educators do now, it's more technology. There's a lot more technology that's going on in the schools. Cameras, Zooms, Google Drive, Google Meets. So we've been adding a lot of IT infrastructure. So working with our IT department, working with electrical needs in rooms, because more TVs, more video monitors, more cameras, or more electricity. We need more outlets. So the biggest thing I've seen changing in education is the concept of adding technology in the rooms.
The other thing is the classroom sizes. These univentilators in the classrooms, they weren't designed right in a lot of these old buildings, so they just can't keep up. Mm-hmm. So it's the biggest challenge.
Years ago, schools would be open, say, from 7 to 3, Monday through Friday. Some of our bigger buildings here in Franklin Township, are open 16 hours a day, at least 6 days a week, and likely on Sunday. And people expect you to be here. They want to use the facilities. They want to have their events. Sports now are 7 days a week. Tournaments are on holidays. And along with that, now we have to adapt how we clean the buildings. Again, years ago, you would wait for everybody to leave. The custodians would come in at night. In the morning, you open back up, everything's done. We've had to learn to clean when people were using the buildings, clean around them, whether that is doing what you can when they're there or moving people from room to room, whatever you need to do.
Yeah, that's a great question, because some people think, well, why? Sure, the auditoriums are 100 years old, but they're still standing. Why do we need new ones? And I think in some ways, we needed an environment that matched the 21st century learning we are creating in our school district. And that, space and materials and resources matter. So it's not just the instructional mindset and moves that teachers make, but they need to have those environmental factors in place in order to really actualize those visions for 21st century learning. And so that's some of the case for support that we built with the community, was having conversations that sounded like that, and really trying to get deep with the community to understand like what our kids are entitled to should be the same as what other kids in other districts are entitled to. And I know no one likes to compare to other communities, and that is problematic in some ways, but in other it's really helpful too, to think about all of the things that the referendum would provide for kids on a daily basis and over time. And that not only do kids deserve that, but the community is making like a generational investment in the schools by trying to advance the goals of the referendum.
I would say they see improvement. I would say we don't get calls for complaints because we try to maintain everything. But for the most part, I think we look good as a district.
I think like everywhere else, the perception from the community has only increased as people pay more in taxes. They expect more in return. They want their buildings not only to run effectively, but they also want to be aesthetically pleasing as well. So we have to balance both.
So it's interesting because I think one of the things that I can say, especially as people came back from COVID, that the school suddenly needed to feel more like a home. And for many decades, I guess, we've been building schools smartly to be as sort of least challenging as possible when you're cleaning it, when you're disinfecting it. So cinder blocks, flat surfaces, and students have come back from COVID wanting to feel more at home. So as we looked at big projects here, whether it was an office renovation or a classroom renovation or our media center, we've had to build in a lot more touches to ensure that it's comforting, that it promotes wellness and calm, and that it deliberately allows for collaboration, as opposed to just kind of an empty box that we're going to put stuff in.
Something every day. My fan is too loud. The blower is too loud. Like I said, the equipment is 20 years old. Some buildings, I've seen it 50 years old. So that is a constant battle. The noise is too loud. They often want the equipment just turned off, but you can't have that because it's bringing their ventilation. So it's a constant challenge every day, especially during heating season as well. One room too hot, one room not hot enough. It's especially if you have steam in your buildings, it's a nightmare. It's not like having your HVAC at home. It's completely different. So yes, huge challenge.
Just press
so
the button.
Your air quality, your noise, it's everything, which is the biggest challenge in these buildings.
All of our programs,
Jeez.
everything is different. The expectation that you have flexible seating and the opportunity to put kids in smaller groups and free flow around the classroom, and classrooms that have a multitude of resources available for kids to utilize. Furniture we have in the classrooms are different. The lighting in the classrooms are different. Sound in the classrooms are different. We have kids with particular sound needs that we have to address within our classrooms. All of those things that 20, 30 years ago perhaps weren't as prioritized have become prioritized as we're now designing classrooms and building buildings.
Classroom of the Future. It was a technology-related project where we had to change out all of our whiteboards and chalkboards for interactive boards. That was a pretty big undertaking.
Well, it's really, and I think it's important right now to ensure that staff know through all the decisions that we're making that we trust their expertise. And so that means giving them facilities that they can use in really innovative ways. And as we engage kids more and more in personalized student-centered instruction, students leading us into the kind of education that they want. What that means is, I think we don't know all of what it means, but what we're starting to understand that it means is that flexible spaces rule. So flexible furniture, multiple layers of AV and presentation type technologies, lots of fabrication spaces that people can make what they want of, different arrangements for power, different arrangements for collaboration to just suit whatever anybody's got in their mind as a crazy idea to try today. It's a tricky thing also, but we've sort of understood that to mean we want to make this instruction more visible as well. We want people to see what's going on. From a security perspective, that's challenging. So when you're talking about more glass, like the fishbowl in our media center, you worry about that from a security perspective. But at the same time, it makes teaching and learning transparent in a way that we feel can be a little sort of infecting for everybody, right? If that's even the right word, but people can see what's going on, and that's exciting.
Our facilities have evolved over the years to meet modern day standards, and I think that will always change. I think what we're seeing on an ongoing basis is that refresh cycle is only increasing. So maybe 50 years ago, you only needed to refresh something once every 25 to 30 years. I don't think it's uncommon now if you're going into a room every 5 years and changing things around as far as technology setup and equipment in the room.
Yeah, there was more people in the community than we had thought who really wanted like a future ready school district, who really wanted a school district that valued innovation. And we're part of a small community, and I think sometimes that smallness comes with an expectation of like traditional practices. But once we ask the community what they want for kids, we found that it was really closely aligned to what we wanted. And so we tried to get out ahead of that a little bit by writing our own story about like how we were trying to implement future ready practices and how we were trying to be more innovative, and that really helped. One thing I learned through the whole referendum process was if you don't write your own story, somebody else writes it for you, and most of the time they get it wrong. So we tried to really be factual and honest, but also build a lot of excitement for the affordances of what the referendum would provide for kids.
Wow, Tammy, it's no longer the school we went to, right? I mean,
Wow, it's changed.
yeah, there's a lot changing and impacting school these days. But I'd say if we can summarize it, it really comes down to four things, really. Technology, obviously, certainly post-pandemic, more so than ever. HVAC and healthy buildings, making sure that we have good air quality in the schools. Also, I'd say security and safety is paramount these days. But now more than ever, making sure that it's just adaptable, it's flexible, making sure that we can continue to make those changes at a more rapid pace.
All right, so let's get some real life examples of successful projects. But beyond that, what elements made those projects successful?
So when I got here, I started to organize with our utility company direct install program. I've worked with them in previous years with another district, so that was a big goal of mine. We were able to change all our lighting to LED. I had new boilers in all the schools and some rooftop units as well. So, I mean, that's going to save the district thousands of dollars in energy and repairs. This district was paying a lot of money on HVAC repairs the years. All the equipment was 20 years old or older. So that was a huge success for me.
What I just said, the whole team concept has really made it successful. Planning, proper planning. If you don't plan correctly, you're planning to fail. The biggest project I've done here in Edison is we just recently completed the 10 classroom addition at Lincoln Elementary with the gymnasium. And there was some issues that came up along the way. We had some asbestos issues that we had to get rid of, and that's why having the building principal involved, we were able to move classes around and make it go smoothly. So 10 classrooms, a couple small group instruction rooms, and a huge gymnasium, and came in under budget and on time.
Our Claremont Elementary School is by far one of our most successful projects, which you all were involved in. We built that building in a very short amount of time, and it was really the building block for all the other things that we were doing at that very same time. We were rezoning our entire district. We were restructuring the grade levels. We were taking one middle school and dividing it into two. And without that building, we wouldn't have been able to successfully do all the other things. Under 2 years, and to build a building of that size, a building that could house 700 plus elementary students in such a short period of time was a feat. And it's a beautiful building, and it functions well, and the design is excellent. We have a lot of our special programs there. We're very proud of that building. We've actually had the opportunity to show it off to others who have wanted to do something similar in their district. And to have done it in 22 months, I think, was a huge accomplishment.
So I was the project manager for a $10 million renovation of a 1923 high school. So that presented many, many challenges. There were many surprises during the project. And again, back to communication, everyone worked together. When there was something that needed to be changed, whether that was moving a classroom or extending a timeline, everyone was pretty cooperative and understanding, through the contractor right to the building occupants. When everyone gets together and is on the same page and works together, that makes a successful project.
I've always lived by, since starting in schools, that it's whatever the students need. So success just means the better atmosphere for the students to learn. So when we talk about HVAC, obviously a well air-conditioned or heated room goes a long way. All these new science labs for the science department is just that they need those things this day and age. So I believe anything that has to do with success, as long as the students can use it and it's built to the best of our ability now. Obviously 10 years from now, it's a different story, but now it's all about the students.
I think our internal renovations, we get a lot of insight from our architects, but it helped a lot, and the work that we do, we own, so.
I think right now, the most successful projects are going to be coming over the next couple of years. But over the last few years, I would say we went through an external renovation of an elementary school where we changed the complete envelope of the school with a new brick facade, siding, along with all new windows and all new exterior doors. And it really changed the look and the feel of the school and really brought it forward into modern day.
So I have to say the media center, our instructional media center, IMC, is just amazing. And we've had I think just about every one of our projects has been successful. And I'll talk about another one that we're really happy about too, at a much sort of smaller conceptual scale. But the IMC was a very complicated renovation of a space that is in every way at the center of campus. So there were a million ways for us to do that wrong and much fewer ways for us to do that right. And the process that we took in gathering feedback, in working with SSP, who was along for the kind of process that we wanted. In fact, it was SSP's compatibility with that sort of process of stakeholder engagement, of mission alignment that impressed us from the first moment that we met you all. So we did everything right there, I think. There are always then ornery things in a space that you uncover later, like, oh gosh, we didn't think of this. Oh wow, if we could do that over again, we would. But by and large, that's been an impressive facility and just a wonderful space for kids and staff.
So I think we've heard that one before. Communication.
Yeah.
Communication.
As important as it is, it's still hard to do.
Yes. The other underlying theme I heard too was getting the right stakeholders and team members.
Making sure that you include a lot of people in that conversation, yes.
What's next?
Well, I think it goes back to one of those initial questions that we had at the beginning. What advice would you give to people starting out from the beginning, or what do you wish you knew at the beginning?
If I only knew.
Be ready for anything. You could get emergency calls at any time, and you never know what to expect. you just have to be ready for it all. You just have to keep calm and come up with solutions for the problems. There's always, getting called in the middle of the night because you got 2 floors flooding with water. You always have to be ready for something. That's the biggest thing with this job. It's 24/7.
Technology, even though I'm in a generation where technology was coming up. I mean, BMS systems and computer technology for driving everything from lighting to HVAC systems. I wish I would have been able to got a little better in that throughout my career. But I learn every day. You live and you learn. So I'm getting there.
Yeah, I think the relationship is something you can build anything. If you have the resources, you pass the referendum, or you have the capital reserve, or if you have the dollars, you can build whatever you need to build. But I think what my advice to somebody would be is make sure that you're having a good relationship with your professionals, right? That you can rely on your architectural firm, you can rely on your contractor. You don't get to pick your contractor, but you've got to be able to rely on your professionals, and you've got to make sure that they're staying, again, I don't want to use a strong word, but on top of your contractor to make sure that the building goals are being met. So I think the relationship that a school board has with its professionals is extremely important, because I don't have the expertise. I'm not a builder, nor are many superintendents I know builders. We gain experience as we do different projects, but if I were brand new, I'm not going to have that kind of expertise I need to ensure that things are getting done the way they're supposed to get done. And I'm going to trust and rely on my professional services folks, architects, project managers, whomever it may be, to make sure that what is being promised is being delivered. And that's, as a superintendent, something that I have the responsibility to do for my community, is make sure what was promised is being delivered. So I think a good relationship and a strong trust between the professionals you're working with and the school board is probably the most important thing, or piece of advice that I would give any, especially person just venturing out into this school building world, if you will.
So develop a good relationship with the contractor and your employees. Make sure they know what's going on, and don't take it home. When you leave for the day, as best you can, leave it at the job. And over the years, I've worried about things I never had to worry about. It's going to work out. Do the best you can and be satisfied with that, and don't overthink it.
Listen to what your stakeholders want. Listen to what your teachers, what people need. Don't think you know it all. Don't think that you know better than somebody else. If you don't listen, you're doomed to fail.
But I'm thinking mostly about having key communicators who can help with referendum messaging. So at the beginning phases, I was anxious, thinking I would have to be the face of the referendum. And I know to a certain extent I had to be, but I really needed a team behind me of parents, of community members, of board members who could help me deliver the same message. So it was really important that we stayed on message, but that we had these key communicators who were doing things like monitoring social media and trying to separate fact from fiction, so that as many people as possible had accurate information about what the referendum was and what it wasn't. I also learned that social media has affordances and limitations, but it was really helpful to have people monitor that, to get a pulse on what the community was thinking about the referendum. And I also learned that not every post needs to be responded to, right? If just 1 or 2 people think something misguided, well, maybe that doesn't warrant course correction or an act where we try to correct them. Maybe it's okay just to let that be. But I think really monitoring the way the community is discussing the referendum in this pre-vote phase was really important. And I think I didn't realize how important until I was actually in the midst of it.
It's just managing the different people. Everybody has their own way of doing things. I came from somewhere for 12 years doing it one way, and then I came here not realizing that Not that I always think my way is the better way, but they do it a different way. And it may not be the best way, it may not be my way, but I also have to realize that's their way. And if it works and it gets the job done in the same amount of time that I would do it just as well, I have to let it go and let them do it, which I wish somebody told me that from the beginning, because I did butt heads a couple times in the beginning.
A lot of great advice there. I think the main message there is that you can't do it alone, and that just build yourself a great team around you, right, Tammy?
Absolutely. It's about the relationships, and the one thing I really liked is keep learning.
Yeah,
It does take a village to raise our children, and SSP Architects would love to be part of your team. So if you need any more information, please reach out to us. We will get you there wherever there is for you.